Hello, I'm Adam Jones, the Communications and Outreach Director for the Tulsa County District Attorney. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Truth Seeker Spotlight interview. I have the privilege of interviewing our Chief of Criminal, Jerry Truster. Jerry, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Jerry, we're sitting at a prosecutor's table in a courtroom, a place that you have been at a lot. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up with so much experience at this table.
Well, it started, I guess, really with my background at Ohio State. I entered there in 1961, finally got out after changing majors 2 or 3 times in 1966. Had a deferment to go to law school. Upon graduation from Ohio State, I was commissioned officer in the United States Army and had a 2-year commitment to serve. But I had the deferment to go to law school, came to the University of Tulsa and entered their program and graduated and got my JD in 1969. Had a deferment again to go on active duty because they lost my paperwork. So long story short is they called up and said, "Lieutenant, when can you come on active duty?" I said, "What's the latest date?" And they said, March of 1970. I said, "Put me down for March of 1970. So I went on active duty and was a courts and boards officer at the 44th Medical Brigade, assigned in Fort George E. Meade, Maryland. And while I was assigned to that brigade, I had met several officers that were JAG officers at the post level, and we became friends. And so I'd travel on off days up to the JAG and watch them in action. And that really kind of planted the seed for being a trial counsel, which is a prosecutor in the UCMJ system. So long story short is I was ready to ETS in 1972 and took leave and came out here to Oklahoma because I wanted to interview with Buddy Fallis, who was then the district attorney, and Buddy had a great office and a great reputation. So I went and put my resume in, and they said, "Well, we'll get back with you. We don't have any slots right now." And I said, "Okay." So I got out of the service, came back to Tulsa, and about June, actually into May, I received a phone call from Frank Hagedorn, who was on his staff, and Frank later became the director of OSBI, and he was also a great prosecutor. He said, "Hey, Buddy says we got the opening if you want to, still interested." I said, "Oh yeah, you bet." So June 1, 1972, I traveled to the courthouse at 8 o'clock in the morning. Didn't have to be there until 8:30, and I got there early, and I go knock on the door, and nobody's there. So I go in, and I see this gentleman sitting across down the way, and he looks up at me, and he puts his head down, and it turned out to be Cliff Hopper, who later became a district judge here and a great prosecutor. And he said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to start today." And he says, "Oh, heck," he said, "I thought you were a cop coming over to file charges." So long story short is that's where I met Cliff Hopper, and he became my mentor. So I was off and running in June 1, 1972, and I never looked back since then. I just truly enjoyed it. I was privileged over the course of the career to work for 6 district attorneys, including Steve, of course, now. And everyone had their strengths, and I was really pleased to be a prosecutor all this length of time.
You seem like you decided pretty early on that you wanted to be a prosecutor. Why was that?
Well, I felt more comfortable on that. It was tell it like it is, do the right thing. Those are phrases that mean a lot to me, especially in front of a jury. You don't ever not tell it like it is. Always tell the truth, and you stand up for what's right and what you believe in, and that's to me, that's the essence of the criminal justice system. I think the best justice is really occurs when you have a great defense lawyer on the other side, a great judge who knows the law, and a great prosecutor who cares about the victims of the crime that he represents. So I felt more comfortable being an advocate on behalf of the individuals who are criminalized and victimized by the actions of these perpetrators, and to put them away.
You've been in a courtroom more than most people could ever dream of, and you've been doing it for a long time. What's the biggest difference between when you started and now that you've seen?
It's a huge difference. I would say we give all our ADAs, as they well know, this manual, that's a prosecutor's manual, trial advocacy manual, actually put together by the National District Attorneys Association, and there's a chapter in here that really summarizes it best. Courtroom technology. We owe each other and every citizen in our jurisdiction to use every adversarial tool which is available to us in order to bring about a just conviction. And then they go into this: why should you use technology during trials? There was a time not so long ago when all the prosecutor had to do was call a few witnesses in a trial to testify that what they saw or heard. If the witnesses were believable, typically the jury would convict. Now that I identify with tremendously, because there was no technology back in the time that I was in office. Today's jurors are made up of ordinary people with significant exposure to technological devices. This exposure to technology has increased the jurors' expectations of what evidence is available to prove an offender committed a crime. As a result, the way we try our cases needs to change with the times. No longer can we rely on a few good witnesses and their credibility. The days of flip charts for closing arguments are gone. Scene photographs can now be displayed in high definition on large screens. Legal documents such as Miranda waivers or consent to search forms can be displayed in digital format for jury observation during testimony rather than the close of evidence. All of that summarizes to say, I'm an old dog trying to learn new tricks, but you got to be tuned into the times that we live in, and the jurors expect to see TV screens and digital images and all that type of thing that we never had to worry about. The other thing that's changed over the years is the attitudes of the jurors, that they expect to see those kinds of things, and they don't rely on the word of the witness as much as they do seeing some corroboration. And that is so vitally important to do. And then the last thing, which disturbs me most of all, is the fact that in the old days, when you called a police officer to testify or an agent to give testimony in a case, without a doubt that they were believed because that was their profession. And now they're not necessarily believed by the jury unless there's some corroborating evidence to carry the day for the jurors, and that's unfortunate.
Well, I love it that you answered that question by citing the hard copy of a manual.
Oh yes, I still go to the books instead of the computer, as you well know.
Yeah. Well, so you've worked for 6 different DAs. You've gone into private practice. You've kind of bounced in and out. You keep coming back. You keep having a certain zeal about you when doing this job. Why are you so passionate about doing it?
Well, it's who we represent. We represent the victims of crimes, and the other part of that is the competitive spirit that I've always grown up with, having played sports all my life. And that's, I think a good prosecutor has to be compassionate and have a lot of empathy for the victims of crimes. The other thing they have to do also is they have to appreciate the times that the officers put in investigating cases, the fact that they're exposed to danger, they go towards it, not away from it, And their efforts that they put those cases together are time consuming. So we have to appreciate that. So I was lucky enough to, early on in the 1970s, to go to a lot of seminars that Buddy Fallis allowed me to do. And many of those are police prosecutor seminars. And I had an affinity for, an appreciation for what the officers do on a daily basis in that regard. And I think it's important to have that communication back across lines from prosecutor to investigator and investigator to prosecutor, and keep everybody informed, because that way we're all one team, and that one team is to seek justice. We search for the truth and we seek justice, and that's what it's all about.
So what's your message to people who want to join this team of public safety?
I believe that they need to appreciate the fact that when we get a case that comes to our office, the first thing that we do is we read the reports. We cite whatever the statute is. We go look at that statute and embrace that, read it thoroughly. Then we go to the jury instructions for the elements of the crime. And then we pick up the phone and we call the police officers who wrote the reports to get their intake, because not every police report is complete. And if you don't call and talk to the officer, you'll never get some tidbit of information that perhaps they, in a hurry, did not include in their reports, and that could make the difference between winning and losing a case. And lastly, what you do is, and you tell the jury in closing argument that you cite them to the message on the wall at the Murrah building, or the wall that was next to the Murrah building. And it's also my prosecutorial philosophy. It was written by Team 5, April 19th, 1995. So we search for the truth, we seek justice, the courts require it, the victims cry for it, and God demands it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have the privilege of officing next to you, and there's many times throughout the day where attorneys from our office are coming to you to ask questions or have a laugh, and there's no doubt that this office appreciates your wisdom and your experience, and I know that we're all so glad that you're here.
That's
and so
my pleasure.
Thank you for doing this interview, and thank you all for joining us for this edition of the Truth Seekers Spotlight interview. So glad that you're here, and we'll see you next time.